This is Remote Daily, your daily dose of inspiration.
Happy New Year. I have the huge honor to welcome our guest today, the CEO and founder of Hood Code, a nonprofit empowering youth ages from 8 to 15 in underserved communities with free education in coding. Live on Remote Daily for the very first time, Jason Gibson. Jason, welcome to the room. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks to the Remote Daily community for having me. Looking forward to talking with you, Felix.
Jason, you're a lifelong New York, and you grew up in what you call the Queensbridge houses. And the Queensbridge houses are a part of New York City Housing Authority. And you brought us a map that Fatma is going to screen share now with us, just to understand, for people like me who didn't grow up here, what New York City Housing Authority actually means, because it's massive. It's home to 1 in 16 New Yorkers, and if it was a city, it would rank 35th in population size in the United States. That means it would be larger than Sacramento, for instance. It's insane. And you brought the screen so we can look at its sheer size, but also, and forgive me for, not knowing enough about this. Can you just set the scene for me and for everybody else who doesn't know how it's like to grow up in one of these dots that we see on the map and in this community, who is absolutely clueless about it? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would give a quick brief history. So NYCHA stands for New York City Housing Authority. It was created back in the mid 20th century to provide affordable housing to working class families. If you notice, most of the dots are in Manhattan and along the waterfronts, because it was affordable housing for the workers that were working in like the shipyards and things like that, closer to the ports. So the public housing was created for that purpose. And around like the 50s, 60s, then, during like civil rights, a lot of Black families, working class Black families, started moving there. Then we had white flight, people moving out to the suburbs. So then the neighborhoods became more populated by Black and other minority groups. And some disinvestment came out of there. That's a whole nother systemic thing. But so when I was raised there, and NYCHA stands for New York City Housing Authority. So when I was growing up there in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the housing, the neighborhood started kind of being on a decline. So unfortunately, my childhood in the Queensbridge houses, and it was pretty much the same throughout many of the different NYCHA communities. It was, crime infested. Crime was big in the neighborhood. There was violence because of that crime. It was during the crack epidemic. And, I was just kind of raised in that environment. Now, all of that kind of, those negative things were going on in the environment, but these communities are also really tight-knit communities too. There is a lot of love and sense of responsibility from the residents and things like that. So you get that as well. There's kind of like a counterbalance of both the crime and the love and the sense of community that's there as well. So although, I was living in an environment that was, crime infested from many ways, but I was also raised by my neighbors and, my friends and just the people in my community. I was raised kind of like being in a village as well. So that's pretty much what my upbringing was, during my childhood years. I ended up getting involved with crime, unfortunately, and I know we'll touch on some of that. And just, another thing about Queensbridge, a lot of big stars are from out of Queensbridge. You got Nas, you got Mobb Deep, hip hop is big there. You got Ron Artest, right, from the NBA star. and a lot of the NYCHA communities produced a lot of important and impactful people in Black culture, in entertainment, in academia, and things like that. Even the founder of Starbucks is from NYCHA. He's from the Red Hook household. So there's a lot of rich culture and history, especially, for New York City and for the country.
Thank you, Jason. Super helpful for me and for everybody who was not familiar with NYCHA. And you just said it. You describe actually your own youth as a life in the underworld. You spent 5 years in prison after involvement with narcotics trafficking, and actually during this time that was so difficult for you, you conceptualized what you're doing now. Hood Code is an idea, if I understand correctly, that came to you in this time. So, I mean, you could have chosen from so many topics to share with, your generation, with young people. Why did you choose to do that? Why did you choose to focus on coding specifically?
Yeah. So what ended up happening was back in 2013, I did go to prison for a special narcotics investigation. So I was sentenced to 5 years. And during that time, I decided, I was 31. I had just turned 31 at that time. And I just decided that, I was done with, being in the street. I have read the book, A New Jim Crow, as well. This was prior to prison, but then I also read the book again in prison. And that book really informed my decision to really leave the streets alone. I realized how much, we were up against systemically and things like that. So because I made that decision, I spent my time trying to figure out what was I going to do when I got out of prison. I spent a lot of time in a law library and things like that. And I really feel like, prison, a lot of people might not know this, but prison could be really therapeutic as well. And I got a lot smarter in prison. I was street smart. I was, I read some books here and there, but I really started consuming and reading a lot of books and consuming a lot of information while I was in prison. No thanks to the prison, but thanks to my supportive system being able to send me material that I wanted and things like that. So, I decided on the tech industry because I was looking for an industry that would afford me the same lifestyle that I was able to provide myself while I was in the drug game, while I was in the narcotics trade. So I settled on the tech industry, and it was because I seen all these young people during the between 2013 and 2015, creating all these big unicorn companies at the time. So I've settled on that. So I was reading up on app development, and I had subscribed to a lot of different business magazines, Forbes and different Bloomberg, and I was reading the tech sections of those magazines. So that really was inspiring me and motivating me to really want to get into that industry. But something that kept coming up during my research and things like that was how a lot of the entrepreneurs and the titans of these companies had exposure to tech at a young age, right? So, and then that just contributed to me thinking about how disadvantaged people growing up in my neighborhood, growing up like I grew up, growing up in NYCHA, were as far as information and resources. And that's how I came up with Hood Code. Hood Code, the idea was to create a boot camp type of thing, like a Flatiron School or General Assembly for young kids. And then I just started from there. And, I came up with the idea in 2017, I hit the ground trying to make that come to fruition.
And you're doing it. You're now hosting classes online and in person. I mean, even the pandemic couldn't bring down this program. You're doing it, and you host classes at NYCHA facilities. So how many kids do you work with at the moment, and how do they actually find you?
Yeah, so we originally started in one neighborhood, handing out flyers, taping up flyers in the buildings. Parents would sign up, reach out to me, email me. I provided my cell phone number. I would speak to them, get them signed up. We hosted classes in the local community rooms. But my ultimate goal was to partner with some of the other community-based organizations throughout the 302 NYCHA complexes throughout the city and partner with them and to utilize their community space, because a lot of the NYCHA community centers have, a lot of the complexes have community centers, and to partner with them and offer our program for free. It's free. We bring the laptops, I bring the teachers, and the curriculum, everything is hood codes. We just ask them for access to their space and access to their students that they already have in their after school and summer programs. And then Hood Code also has our own Zoom classes that we host as well, which we transitioned to during the pandemic, but we're definitely going to continue to offer the Zoom classes, because that helped us expand our reach from, our local community center in East Harlem to the 5 boroughs. But now we're in person in 3 community centers. We're in 3 in Manhattan on the west side. 2 in Manhattan on the west side, 1 in Long Island City, Queens, and then we have our Zoom classes. So in total, we have about 60 kids a week.
Wow. Fantastic. Congratulations. I see my daughter now actually also getting, closer and closer to coding in elementary school. And I admire it. I'm also kind of jealous because it was not part of my generation's growing up. And I was wondering, how do you actually teach it? Because it's like learning a new language. It's hard. So how do you actually, what platform do you use for the kids to actually learn how to code? And is that maybe a platform everybody in the room here could find useful?
Yeah, to get kind of like a elementary level introduction of coding, there's a bunch of programs out there now, but we use Scratch. Scratch was created by MIT a few years back, and it's block-based coding. So I kind of compare it to like digital Legos. Imagine Legos, right? Like put Legos together to make this, structure or a car or a spaceship, whatever it might be. So imagine those Legos having code programmed into it. And then as you put them together and you create your structure, it brings your, your Lego design to life. That's sort of what Scratch is. It's blocks of code that have code in it, where what the students do is they put these blocks together and it makes a project. Their project can be anything. There's backgrounds they choose. There's different sprites, characters that they use, and they make projects, that are really interactive, games and things like that people can, you upload and it can become public, and people can actually, play your game or your project that the students created.
Fantastic. And kudos to MIT for putting this out there for free, if I understand correctly. Now, Jolie asked a very important question in the chat here. We're talking about areas or, also housing structures that are not hooked up with the latest high-speed internet. So what about the kids that don't have good connectivity or don't even have computers or maybe don't even have internet?
Yeah, so that was always one of the major challenges. That's why I wanted to be the person. That's why I wanted to make laptops and things like that part of my program, because, understanding that connectivity, having access to hardware, computers, in addition to the curriculum and the teachers that can do it, I wanted to be able to bring everything to the table so that the families and the students wouldn't have to worry about anything except for showing up and being present. So, it's easier for when we do in-person classes, right? Because we bring hotspots if a location doesn't have internet, or if they, don't have internet that can support the amount of kids the amount of students we might have in a class. So we have the hotspots, we have the laptops. Now, it's more of a challenge for some of the students that, especially during the pandemic, that might not have these things at home and are trying to do it on Zoom. Now, during the pandemic, you may know that the Department of Education did give kids tablets and laptops. Now, hood code, for the purposes of doing hood code, you need a laptop. It doesn't really work well with a tablet. So sometimes I lend out laptops to the family so that they can stay involved in things like that. But it is a challenge with internet and things like that. And those are some of the things that, we're going to work on trying to solve. But, that's down the line.
Wow, so impressive. And we found you through the David Price, which is an amazing platform for everybody interested in amazing New Yorkers. Also sharing the link here in the chat alongside with recent press on Jason, with the Instagram, the website, so you all can follow and support. The David Price gives out $200,000 unrestricted grants every year to 5 New Yorkers who are creating a better and brighter future for the city. So, hey, congratulations for being the winner. So well deserved. And you did an interview with the David Price, and there was a quote in there that when Liz and I prepared for today that really stood out to us. It said, "I can't tell kids that are growing up like me, that are hustling, not to do it if I don't have an alternative to offer them." So,
go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, I love that you chose that to actually share with the remote daily community, because that's really what's something that's personally really important to me, is that quote right there that you said, because it's true. It's I would love to tell, every kid in the neighborhood, go around telling them, hey, don't hustle, don't do crime, don't rob, don't steal, don't do these things for these reasons. But a lot of times, they're not doing it because they want to, or because they want to terrorize a neighborhood, or they want to, they just like the idea of selling drugs, or robbing somebody, or stealing somebody's property, or something like that. A lot of times they're doing it for survival, for necessity. Their back is against the wall. They don't know, what's out there for them, especially back when I was growing up. It might be a little different now, as far as because people have social media, and information is a little more accessible now through the internet, but you still have to offer something to somebody. And especially me coming from that background, me being someone who made some of those same choices, I know how important it would be for someone to come to me and say, hey, don't do this, take this, right? And I want to be that person. I want to be that person to offer an alternative, or connect them to an alternative. So yeah, that's a really important quote from that interview.
And you have this all mapped out. You see coding as a pathway to success, and you actually brought us a screen where you have kind of mapped out the future of work for these kids that you work with. So can you take us into that and share with us, like, what kind of successes have you already seen with the kids that went through Hood Code?
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal with Hood Code, as you may be able to see, I know the text is kind of really small, but the goal is, one, to provide mentorship and throughout the whole process. Once a student gets introduced to Hood Code, let's say at 8 years old, we want to have it set up so that we have mentors, hopefully people from the community, but if not, it could be people just from the industry, people with professional backgrounds from academia, wherever it's from, people who really understand the needs of underserved or underrepresented or underestimated communities, who truly want to kind of provide some type of mentorship. I want to be the nexus. I want Hood Code to be the nexus to connect those people to the kids and to the community. So we want that to be part of this whole process. Now, a kid will get through enrollment, get introduced to Hood Code, like you mentioned earlier, Felix, 8 to 15, NYCHA residents, and then they'll go through our program, which is introduction to coding and the concept of coding, and the exercise and disciplines of problem solving and things like that. We use the Socratic method of problem solving. That's how we encourage our teachers to teach, to ask the kids questions, to get them thinking about how to solve, any bugs or anything that they might encounter with their coding. collaboration.
Just to interrupt here, Jason's Socratic method. I was just like, whoa, I need a, I need a question mark behind that. Socratic method. I just try to Google. You don't give a straight answer. Is that right? Is whenever?
No, we're asking questions. We're asking them, hey, so what did you try? What did you do? What happened when you tried that? Where do you think something is at? Just to get them thinking more and more about what they're doing, how they're going about solving the problems. The big thing is about getting the kids to think critically. I believe, and I think the team believes, that will transcend outside of coding as well. That will transcend into how they move around in their life and in their communities as well.
So it all ties back into also what Patty just put in the chat. You're showing alternatives, right? You're not saying do that, don't do that. You're showing alternatives, and you let them find them yourself. So back to the pathway. I see hood code popping up in every step of the way until it says career. So since you started, have you already seen kids going further on that pathway? Like, what were some of the successes that you already saw?
Yeah, so a lot of the kids have, so I've been able to, because we have because Scratch is so, it's for younger kids. So a lot of kids outgrow working with us. So what I've been able to do is get scholarships for kids into other coding programs. One of them is the coding space. We actually got a couple of our kids some scholarships to there. We're working on building partnerships with other organizations that work with young adults in coding. So they're doing more web development, more text-based coding, data analysis, and things like that. So we're working on trying to build those partnerships so that we can provide that pathway from hood code into those programs. But I'll say this, one of my teachers, she actually went for a summer internship to work at Uber over in San Francisco. Uber had her over and she was there for the summer, made some real good money for a summer job for a teenager, and a freshman in college. And, that's the type of, trajectory we want to put our kids on, is to get them, those that take an interest in computer science, to be able to have them go through a similar pathway.
Amazing. Talking about obstacles for a moment, I want to go to Rashad's question here. It's very specifically, like, how do you actually go above that obstacle of connectivity? So you already said that you bring hotspots and all that, but can you maybe also, for Rashad and everybody else is interested, just walk us through like what the actual equipment is that you're using?
Yeah, so we use Chromebooks mostly, and that's where a lot of so we use Chromebooks mostly. They're more kid friendly and just a little more affordable laptop computers to get. And then we use hotspots from like Verizon, and we have internet. The hotspots usually can connect about 15 of our laptops, of our Chromebooks. We get the Chromebooks through donations. As part of my budget is to be able to purchase the Chromebooks to provide them. And, we lug the Chromebooks over in big, giant, 30-inch suitcases. We lug them over to each location with the hotspots, and we set up. And, that's how we do it.
Wow. And what are you, like, talking obstacles? I mean, as a nonprofit, funding is probably front and center of everything you're doing. What are you going to do with the grant that you just received? Like, do you need the money most at the moment?
Yeah, it's for staffing. So I currently am not full-time. I do hood code. I volunteer my time to hood code still. I have a 9-to-5 job. I do reentry work at a law office. So a lot of it is going to go to now me trying to hire a team to work with me. So program directors, managers, to purchase more laptops so that we can expand out to more community, NYCHA communities that have expressed some interest. And for me to build a more professional team that has the experience in nonprofit management and things like that to, help me get to the point to start raising more funding so that I can, become full-time CEO. at Hood Code, and really focus a lot of my energy on expanding my visions and networking with more folks and getting people on board with the mission and, building these partnerships in the way that I envision them working out for the kids.
And on your website, it says a little already does a lot. You say $100 says on your website covers a coding instructor for a week of classes, and $500 already buys 3 laptops. So there's a lot of experience in this room when it comes to funding and nonprofits. These are all geniuses in this community, curious people from all walks of life. So Brandon is actually asking, is NYCHA supporting you?
NYCHA is supportive as far as the tenant association, the tenant that in the different communities. I don't have a big working relationship with like the overall NYCHA. So not really.
Room for improvement there.
Room for improvement, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And Rashad is wondering if you have considered any corporate sponsors, because many of them obviously have initiatives that might fit yours.
Yeah, listen, I apply for tons of grants. So that's another thing that I'm going to be working on and using some of my prize money for, is to be able to hire a grant writer, someone who's more experienced, with grant writing and things of that nature. And corporate sponsors. So I do have some corporate sponsors. I work with an organization called Gotham Gives, and that's an organization that was set up by Fred and Joanne Wilson, who are venture capitalists and real estate entrepreneurs here in New York City, maybe even around the country. And I get a lot of support and from Gotham Gives. And I'm also speaking with with Pfizer right now. Pfizer is very interested. It's not 100% yet, but it's looking really, really good that Pfizer is going to give me a significant grant. Yeah, Union Square Ventures is Fred Wilson's venture capital firm. Yep. And so, yeah, I'm working on those relationships. I think as, I partner with some of these other people like Gotham Gives. Now, the David Prize gave me a lot of kind of credibility, working with Pfizer, give me some credibility, and just building these different partnerships. I think as I build my credibility up, I think a lot of the corporate world will be interested in working with me and seeing that I'm the right leader for this work that I'm doing.
You are definitely, and it's such an honor to host you. Jolie is actually mentioning one more organization that I just Googled called Mouse. I think I found it, mouse.org. Is that an organization you're familiar with, Jason? Have you?
I've never heard of Mouse. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'll look that up as well. Mouse.
Okay, cool. So Jolie, and of course this is for everyone here in the room, if you have any organizations in mind that you have ties to that might be interested in working with Hood Code and Jason, please let us know. The contacts are here in the chat. We'll post them once more. And Jason, there's so much discussion around the future of New York City. I mean, it goes from the economic to the urban planning to, of course, the youth, the kids in the pandemic. And you have seen it all. Like you said, starting out in the underworld, working your way out. Now you're saying you're working as a re-entry person, as a helper, to always bridging these gaps that exist in New York City. When you think about the kids you work with, the next generation of young people, what's most imperative to you for, like, when you think about these people?
Yeah, I mean, it's about giving, folks access to resources and opportunities, job training, and things like that. I mean, my kind of work and philanthropy that I plan on doing is really NYCHA focused. As you mentioned, Felix, earlier, the NYCHA population is so big. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, almost millions of people that live in NYCHA. The buildings are in disrepair. If anybody just did a little research on, NYCHA, you would see a lot of kind of like negative, press and things out about, NYCHA and the conditions of the buildings and the living conditions and the quality of life that the residents are subjected to. To be fair, some of it is due to mismanagement by NYCHA, but then also some of it is due to a lack of accountability by some residents. And my goal is to try to get the residents more involved and more invested in doing what we can do to improve the quality of life of our neighborhoods. And I have a number of different initiatives that, like we all talked about before, that I plan on proposing and showing as an alternative, as a opportunity for the residents to get involved and trying to improve the quality of life of the neighborhood. And I think once we do that, those neighborhoods and the surrounding neighborhoods, will all, merge in harmony. At least that's how I envision it.
Wow. And I just what you said about the sheer number of people, we're talking between 300,000 and 400,000 people in New York City alone. This is
even more than that, Felix.
Yeah, even more than that?
Yeah, they say that it could be about 800. I think it's about 600,000 actual holders of NYCHA. But they say that, with some people that might not actually be on a lease, it could be upwards of like 800,000 people.
So we're talking Memphis, Detroit, Boston, like that's the sizes of cities that have the same population as NYCHA has in New York City.
Right.
I mean, it's just mesmerizing. And I mean, what you're doing is planting the small seed, but at some point you probably want to scale this. So what is your, if you could dream into the future, what's the sort of like end game for Hood Code? Like where do you want this to go?
Yeah, listen, I want Hood Code to be an after school and summer program in every NYCHA complex throughout the 5 boroughs, running simultaneously, employing the young adults that live there, right, to be the teachers and mentors and alum, in our classes. And hopefully one day maybe I'll be able to even make Hood Code a school, right? Like, and it'll be an actual facility that kids will go to and learn Hood Code, and I'll incorporate, I want to do some African-American studies. Eventually, I want to try to incorporate that. Nicole Hannah-Jones has the 1619 Freedom After School program. I hope to one day be able to merge that into Hood Code. I have ideas for vocational training that I want to do for young adults, so I would like to incorporate that, and that would be in a Hood Code school. That's how I would like it. But in the interim for Hood Code specifically, I want Hood Code to be an after school and summer program in each NYCHA community, and to have those partnerships that we talked about earlier, where each kid that's coming through Hood Code is learning those different skills that Hood Code has to offer, and then hopefully going into the computer science industry and the myriad of different positions, that might be available in that industry, and, earning and improving the quality of life and improving their financial legacies of their families, and, hopefully contributing to the quality of life of the NYCHA, complex that they grew up in.
Wow. I hope we can help you on that mission, and I hope that we can all be there one day when the Hood Code School opens its doors here in the city. Jason, how can we support you at this point? There's already a lot of suggestions in the chat. Eleanor said she might know a grant writer to link you up with. Jolie is very connected with the MASH community in New York City. What's, like, when I ask just you, like, in your own words, like, what's the best way to support you right now?
Yeah, so the best way is through financial donations, but because we would use a lot of the financial donations, like I said, for me to build that team that I need to start meeting some of our milestones and goals and things of that nature. But anybody who might have the expertise, I do see a lot of those referrals and suggestions there, to connect me with those people that you think will be able to help me professionally with the nonprofit management side of things, grant writing, any corporate sponsors or referrals that people can make, promoting Hood Code, promoting our Instagram, and things like that, and just following us and continuing to support us and get the word out there about the organization.
Thank you. There's
as much professional development assistance as possible, and that's personally and personally and professionally, but also for the organization. As I mentioned, I grew up in the underworld, so everything that I'm doing in I'll say conventional society is new to me. So I'm learning things on the fly. I'm learning even like emails in the past 3 years. I wasn't doing that, in my prior lifestyle. Emails, Google Docs, slides, I'm learning these things as I'm doing Hood Code as well. So anyone who even might have the time to lend some professional development or insight or resources, that would be a great way to assist me as well.
Fantastic. So a huge call to action, and I also assume that nonprofit management is a jungle of things to move through. So if anybody here has connections to the nonprofit world and people there who might be able to help, we would love for you to reach out to Jason. There is many suggestions here in the chat coming in, and I want to thank you all for being so supportive of this amazing initiative, shaping the city, shaping the future of work, and most importantly, shaping lives of kids. We already heard the story of one teenager having the best summer job they ever had, and there's many more coming up through this program. So Jason, it's just a little love from us here right now virtually, but I just want to give some virtual glitter for you, an amazing guest today on Remote Daily from all across the world. We stretch our hands out, and we have live music for you as well. Thank you so much, Jason Gibson, the founder and CEO of Hood Code, for being our guest today. And Jason, we always pass the mic one last time to our guest towards the end of the session. What would you like to leave us with? What is a final word? Maybe a personal mantra, maybe an announcement, just anything that comes to mind that you would like to leave us with today.
Yeah, another one of my favorite things is a quote from Frederick Douglass. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And that was something that I read in prison and it really resonated with me. And, I hope it may resonate with some of the Remote Daily community.
Wow. Thank you. And for everyone who is here today, thank you from our hearts for being a part of this community. Please support Jason. Please support Hood Code with contacts, with ideas, with actual help, with maybe putting your own time in to help building this amazing initiative. Thank you again, Jason, and have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
This is Remote Daily.